Okay, student number is 150090, name Haris van Zijl, and my game's name is Boxing Bash, time to buck up. So this is an arcade game, so please keep that in mind. It's not a story-based or narrative-based focus, it's more a gameplay-focused game. You get an arcade mode and a free-flow mode, but I'll elaborate on that later. Basically, the game is moves are decided beforehand for the player, and the player needs to keep moving even after the player has stopped or got stuck. After the player gets stuck, it's game over. In free-flow mode, this is where the player can play on their own time to get used to the mechanics of the game. So the story is, after getting beaten down, the character decides to start training to fight. The player needs to keep the character moving in order to maintain a combo multiplier and end with a high score. Thus, the objective of the game is getting an high score. After beating your own high score a few times, the character will change in size to indicate that he's building muscle, and new difficulties of combos and speed of the arrow indications will be unlocked. After a few changes in size, the player will reach his or her goal and finish the game basically with a cinematic type concept art stills. The target audience is about 16 and over because there are a lot of violence, and I'm planning to add a bit of blood as well. This is taken from Far Cry Blood Dragon. This is basically their type of cinematic. It's just stills moving a bit, concept arts when they're talking and such. So this is my idea for the cinematics. The player is set in an environment in which the character does not need to walk or run anywhere. The player is set for instant gameplay, which is stationary and only requires the gestures of analogs to move the character's arms and buttons to move the characters up the body. So the player will be set in a boxing gym or a kickboxing gym or a martial arts gym. It's not a Virgin Active gym. So a place where you can train your martial arts. The mechanics of the game is, the more the player keeps the moves coming, the bigger the effects. The effects are 2D lines that will rotate along with the arms movements or the hips or the shoulders. But as the player keeps playing, the various move combos get more and more difficult. The player will begin with just basic boxing, and then kickboxing, and then Muay Thai, and then the mixture of the styles. I believe in a martial arts view, there is differences, but boxing is just straight up punching. Kickboxing is punching with kicks added, and Muay Thai is punching with kicks added, with elbows and knees added as well. So yeah, it'll start with boxing, just punching, then kicking with boxing, and then elbows and knees added as well. There's no online play, but two people can play split screen in sparring mode for multiplayer. The idea is that the character is training, so he's not attacking people, he's attacking the punching bags to work on his fighting. So there will be no AI enemies. The game is level-based, not in a sense of level 1 to 100, but more in the character changes in size over a certain time that you beat your own high score. But the high score should be in third, second, or first place to be beaten or qualify for the character to change in size. So you get arcade mode and free-flow mode. Arcade mode is the default mode that you start with. That's where moves beforehand are decided for the player and keeps moving even after the player has stopped. Okay? Free-flow mode is where the player can play on their own time to get used to the mechanics of the game and get their own X-hit combo documented. For the highest single combo per session gets saved as a high score in the free-flow mode. So, as I said, the objective of the game is getting a new high score every time. But it's quite difficult actually. After the player had finished scoring a few new high scores, but the player will change in size. Then the player will change the size. To begin in a small and skinny body and end up with the final character, which you will see later. And after the player has unlocked the character's final form, then a scene will play where he finds the goons that attacked him and beats the rubbish out of them. Just to get that closure for the player. Playing the game, the player can first learn how to play by doing the intro of the gameplay, in which only basic moves are given, and then build up from there. And this will happen every time the player starts arcade mode, just to get the player in the flow of the game. If the player fails, it's game over, obviously. Then the player can do whatever he wants or she wants. Then they can go into free flow mode or multiplayer and do sparring or free flow mode. The basic moves will be less compulsory in the beginning of arcade mode as soon as the character has unlocked his or her first body muscle upgrade. So what I mean by this is you'll learn the mechanics of the game by going into arcade mode. You're going to only get in arcade mode at first and do only basic moves until the real gameplay starts. And once that's going to happen every time until you unlock your first body. That won't be too difficult anyway. So the character just needs to do the combinations indicated showed by arrows moving from one point of screen to another, using analog motions of a controller. Okay. The goal is to keep up with the indicated arrows, like Dance Dance Revolution and those who don't know. Just want to show you an example. So arrows will move, and you'll have to, okay, not that fast, but the arrows will move, and you'll just have to replicate those gestures with the analog sticks. Okay. They will do that to build up the combo multiplier to max and keeping it there. An error resets the combo multiplier, but the player can keep playing if they react quick enough through a perfectly timed bob or a weave. Now a bob or a weave bobbing is where you move your body forward or backwards like a dodging effect. And weaving is moving your body left and right for a dodging effect. This will generate points for you. So you do get points, but a very small amount. And this will then reset your multiplier, but you will be able to carry on with the points you have already cashed in. Cashed in points are when the player does not move for a short period of time while there's a break in between combos, which will be demonstrated later. The do-over bobbing and weaving timing gets more difficult depending on the multiplier number the player was currently on upon failure. So let's say he was on ×2 and you make an error. You get 2 seconds of time to do a bob or weave to reset your multiplier and go on with the game. But if you're at ×20, which is max, then you'll have a split second or so time to do a bob or weave to reset your multiplier and go on with the game. If they cannot continue, then it's game over. The player needs to go on either until the time runs out or when they fail. In arcade mode, the timer runs out. It counts down. But extra seconds can be awarded during gameplay for when an extra objective is met. These objectives are side quests the player needs to achieve. For example, out of the box achievement would be doing 4 backwards bobs in a row in a break between combos, which would be difficult before the combo begins. And more standard achievements would be like getting a perfect combo hit to get like 2 seconds or so. Standard achievements will add a small amount of seconds, like I said, and more out of the box achievements will earn the player much more. The multiplier works like Electronic Arts SSX, the 2012 version. The player builds up the multiplier and gets points after the multiplier cashes in. It cashes in after a break between moves in order to maintain the multiplier, and the player can do a series of static movements. In my game, it'll be bobbing and weaving, which still feeds a small amount of points into the multiplier, so that there is no break in between the breaks, the combos. So in order to show you how it works, so this is the end of a race. You'll see that here's his points he's got, and multiplies at times 20. When he hits the end of a race, he'll cash in everything times 20, which would be now. And now he has 27 million points. So that's what I want to do with my game as well. Each move gives off a unique point. The more basic the move and the more frequent the move is used, the less points it's earned. The more advanced the move, the more points it's worth. I will be using a Unity asset called Beat Detection, which detects rhythms of music and visualizes it. This visualizations will be the effects I mentioned for the movement of a character and the rotation of his hips. The bobbing and weaving is the same as the nose and tail presses used in SSX between jumps, just to keep that little points feeding into the multiplier. Bare Knuckle mode is like a rage ability for God of War. Once the vital meter is filled, the character will reach an overdose of adrenaline rush state, which can be triggered by pressing the 2 analog sticks. This is when the character reminds himself why he is training and unleashes a flurry of high-powered and highly advanced attacks, which gives off an incredible amount of points. During Bare Knuckle mode, the multiplier will reach max capacity of times 20 and resume multiplier and resume the amount he had before it began. Bare Knuckle mode lasts until the Bare Knuckle vial is empty, which takes time to fill through doing only advanced moves. The game has 3 types of modes. It's arcade mode, which is the default mode, free flow mode, and multiplier mode, which is just split screen. Free flow mode is a combo linking training mode where the player can do his own moves at his own pace and link up as many points as possible without a huge break in between combos. Because if the break exceeds a certain amount of time, when then the points that the player had worked up gets cashed in, which is the player's score that they got through putting in the moves. In this mode, the objective is thus to get a high score within one combo and link up as many moves as you can to make a huge number of combo. In multiplayer, split screen gameplay can be accessed. 2 players at most, because it's a sparring match. The player can then play free flow mode next to each other or compete until one fails. Yeah. Oh yes, with a sparring mode, the health will only lower once a 3 hits combo or above is met, nothing less. So no jabs, no jab crosses, it must be a jab cross or anything more than that. Unlockables are like extra props that can be unlocked once a specific high score limit is reached. Objects such as customized boxing gloves with sharp objects attached, or meat gloves, or and also customized targets. Targets are like a boxing bag, but this can be changed to a metal box, a freezer, or a massive piece of meat like a slaughtered pig. These objects will deform at certain moments throughout the gameplay as it endures or dishes out more damage. My reference for the sharp objects attached to the boxing gloves is a part of the game Twisted Metal. So yeah, he uses there's scissors and knives and scalpels and everything attached to the glove, what I want to add as well. So the buttons are laid out in text, but I can also show you just a picture. But the gameplay is focused on the controller, but the keyboard can be used as well as with the WASD and the arrow keys for the body parts, and then the numpad numbers for the bobbing and weaving. So this is my controls. It's just basically left analog is your left arm, right analog is your right arm, and pressing L1 or the left button indicates kicking. So by default, the analogs will only be used for punching. If you hold L1 in, you'll be kicking. If you hold R1 in, you'll be using your elbow, and basically the knees are the elbow of the legs. So pressing L1 and R1 together will give you knees. I thought of giving bobbing and weaving both the arrow indications and the button indications just to fill up the controller. Advanced moves can be accessed if you press L2, and power shots if you press R2. And on the keyboard it'll be Control and Alt and Shift basically. The story will indicate conflict as motivation for the gameplay. In the gameplay itself, there are no combat involved among people, like shooting or fighting, but the player will be punching the gym bag. In the economy, the points of a high score will be graded by first, second, and third, etc., and will be measured by prescribed high scores. And if a player beats these scores or beats their own score, then an award will be given for beating the specific score and bonus points by how much. There's no specific gaming currency, but with these points you are able to buy customized props for the character and environment. You only obtain these points by finishing the game, not failing when the timer stops. The score amount will be a massive number like SSX, but the price of the unlockable props will be significantly higher. So you're gonna need to work with it. So in the story, one day walking home, a man gets confronted by a gang of men, getting in an unwanted fight, then mugged by the same people. The man decides to start training to fight, so that when he meets the guys who beat him, well, you know, sweet revenge. Game will start with direct gameplay that will let the player learn the basics of the game. The character will then remark and show that he's tired because he's unfit and has no muscles to begin with. Cutscenes of the encountered conflict of the muggers beating him down comes up and shows the motivation for his situation, and thus he keeps on training on punching bag. This is the beginning. Throughout the game, after specific points, more cutscenes will appear when a goal is unlocked. At this point, the character will fantasize of beating he will give the muggers when he catches them in the streets someday. The physical appearance of the character will be changed in about 5 increments, but could be more or less. After the final change and the high score that unlocked the change is beaten a few times, the end cutscenes will show where the character will walk home one day and encounter the muggers that confronted him in the beginning of the game. The character then beats them down and continues to walk home with his bloody fist. Because actually he's training to fight bare knuckle. That's why there is a mechanic called bare knuckle mode. So, as I said, he's in a boxing gym. What I want to add here is that the player can choose later in the game where he wants the character to stand in the gym. So I want to make 3 gym areas, and the character can choose where in the gym he wants to stand in front of the boxing bag. The main character is a skinny man that has never fought in his life. He gets mugged in the streets and gets beaten up badly. That's what I said. The player will be able to choose 2 other characters as well, but after the first character has built up his muscle by ×3, so when he reached level 3 basically. An 18-year-old teenager girl and an overweight man. The stories will differ for what their motivation is for training. The teenager is abused by a stepfather. Planning on defending herself one day, she trains in order to get stronger and learn hand-to-hand combat. The overweight man's motivation is that people always taunted him about his figure all his life. Now overwhelmed with hate, he's training in order to beat the next person calling him tubby into a pulp. For my game art, I want a cartoony arcade style like EA's Facebreaker, but more realistic in ways, but still fun. So not as realistic as EA's Fight Night. The main character, this is his final form. I want him still to be a bit small and a bit skinny, but have massive muscles. And this is the sculpted version and the retopologized version of the final form. The video example of the gameplay I desire, this is video I made just to indicate the sort of UI that's in the game itself. Excuse the timing. So jab, jab, cross, right hook, left hook, right hook, jab, cross, right hook, left hook, right hook, left hook, right hook. So that's basically it. As you see, the bare knuckle mode only changes after a successful combo hit or after a advanced moves, which are the hooks. So reasons why I decided on a few things. I decided on the name Boxing Bash just because it's an arcade game. It's not, and it should be indicating the game is about boxing. Okay, I added split screen so that people can enjoy playing the game in a competitive way other than the main gameplay. I won't like playing this game if I can't fight against my friends. For the story, I wanted to implement a real life situation, but I noticed that animation and game kind of relate to each other in ways of appeal. So I added a bit of exaggeration to the story, but still keeping that real feeling or somehow sad feeling that what people think about someone else that actually does something with a motivation that only that specific person can understand. The idea of the characters' motivations are actually things that happened to me personally. Like I got mugged and got hit in the head by a rock and needed stitches after passing out. The story about the man getting called names and stuff. I was just the primary target in preschool for bullies, and I was never abused. I just got a huge spanking one day for no reason, so it scarred me. And that's basically it. In free flow mode is the combo linking gameplay. This is just a way for the players to memorize good combos and maybe just have that mentality of Devil May Cry. You can make huge amount of number combos in Devil May Cry, and you can actually do this in this game as well. You just need to practice. So that's it. Yeah. The analog, the reason I want to use controllers is that it's more realistic. It's a more realistic feel, like Fight Night has achieved. You won't get this experience in keyboard, but it will still be an option if the player does not own a controller. Yeah, thanks. We'll stop it. Just escape.